Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this video, I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Tipsy Granny Zipper Pouch, which is a free pattern you'll find on mooglyblog.com. This pattern was called the Tipsy Granny because we use short rows to create this dynamic movement in the fabric, and we use Yarnspiration's Red Heart all-in-one Granny Square yarn, which is a self-striping yarn with some unique properties and really help emphasize the short row shaping that we're doing when we're making this pouch. That said, it is pretty simple. We use basic stitches, so even beginners should be able to give this one a try. We also use stitch markers, a J hook, which is a 6mm hook. This one is by Susan Bates, and a 9-inch black yarn zipper, or whatever color best matches the yarn colorway that you've chosen to make your pouch out of. You can see here that the Red Heart all-in-one granny square that I used has black on the outside round for the granny squares that this yarn makes. You can see that too with the amount of black you can see in the skein. So that's why I chose the black zipper, and you can see the black emphasized here. If you're using some of the other colors of all-in-one granny square, they might end in white or the ecru soft white color, so you would want to use a white zipper for those. Let's go ahead and take a look at our finished Tipsy Granny Zipper Pouch. So here's the finished Tipsy Granny Zipper Pouch. The crocheting is done in one long rectangle. You can see the other side here that is then folded, the sides are seamed, and then we sew in the zipper. You can see it right here. This is a really nice sturdy zipper, and I really enjoy using the yarn zips. Now, I know it's kind of hard to see because it's black on black here, but if you look very closely, you might be able to see my stitching. I was able to use a yarn or tapestry needle and this yarn itself to just sew this right in. There is a straight line channel of looser fabric to the zipper itself that you can follow right along, and using that and just following along with a row of stitching makes installing one of these zippers super, super easy. Oops, looks like I did miss one end though when I was weaving in my ends right there. Other than that, it's very simple with some simple stitches, so let's get started. So the first thing you're going to need to do, which is a little unusual for this project, is we need to prep the yarn and find the beginning of our black section. Now you might be lucky and it might be the end sticking out already, but if not, you can just pull out the yarn until you come to where you can see the switch over to the black. Or if you're using a different colorway, for instance, this one right here, where the outer round is white, then you would keep pulling out until you find the beginning of your white section, whatever your main color, your outer color with your yarn is. Or if you're not using this yarn, whatever color you'd like at the top of your bag. You can take the remaining yarn that you've cut and set it aside. We can use that later for seaming if you don't want to waste it. All right, let's begin row 1. I put a slip knot in my yarn about 4 inches from the end. The exact measurement doesn't matter. Then we're going to chain 30. Now, if you'd prefer, since we're simply going to chain 30, skip the chain closest to the hook, and single crochet in each remaining chain, giving us a total of 29 single crochets, you can instead foundation single crochet 29 for the first row if that's what you'd prefer to do. Otherwise, simply chain to 30, and then we'll add our single crochets here in a moment. So otherwise, if you're following the written instructions after you've chained 30, we're going to skip the chain closest to the hook and single crochet in each remaining chain across. Now, I know I'm using black, so it may be difficult to see, but I'm working into the underneath hump of the chain, not the front loop and not the back loop, and certainly not both of those loops at the top of the chain, which is the standard way most of us are taught to do it. The reason I'm doing it this way is because this way, those 2 loops, the top of the chain, will remain at the top of our bag and give a really nice finished edge, so we do not have to work another finished edge around to finish up our bag. However, if you'd prefer to crochet into a different part of the chain, you absolutely can do that. It's just for looks, and it won't affect the function at all. Our main purpose with row 1 is to end up with a row of 29 single crochets. So I'll see you when we're ready for row 2. All right, so at the end of row 1, you should have a total of 29 single crochets, and rows 2 and 3 are as simple as they come. We simply chain 1 and single crochet all the way across. This is creating the wide little band there at the top of our pouch. So let's go ahead and skip those for the purposes of demonstration. They're just rows of single crochet, and let's move on to begin pattern repeat. If you're following along with the written instruction, which I do recommend you do for this pattern. So row one rather of our begin pattern repeat, we start again with a chain one. Of course, we always want to turn. We're working in rows here. And now we are going to single crochet in the first stitch. And then we are going to back loop only single crochet in the next 24 stitches. So if you're not familiar with front loop and back loop crochet, we look at the top of our stitch. And I know that this one might be a little hard to see, so let me grab another project here that I just happen to have sitting nearby. So we can look closely at the top of our stitch right here. You can see how there are two loops at the top of pretty much any crochet stitch. There's the loop that's closest to you, the crocheter, and there's the loop that's furthest away. When we work under the back loop only, we put our hook under just the loop that's in back. When we work under the front loop only, we put our loop that is closest to us right there, only under that loop. So for this project, we're going to be working under the back loop only. So I worked under both of those loops for the first stitch, and now for the next 24, I'm going to put my hook right between those top two loops. So you can see there on my hook, I've picked up just that back loop. Then I make my single crochet just as I normally would. So we've got our first single crochet under both loops, and then we need to do 24 back loop only single crochets. So that will leave several stitches at the end completely unworked. So now I have back loop only single crocheted in those 24 stitches. That should leave 4 stitches here at the end unworked. So if it's easier to count backwards and see how many you didn't work into, then you can do that as well. That finishes row 2, and you can see how there's a little step there. For that's row 1 of our repeat. For row 2 of our repeat, we are going to chain 1 and turn, or turn and chain 1, however you like to do it. Back loop only single crochet until we get to that last stitch, and then single crochet in that last stitch. So when we regular single crochet, that means under both of those top 2 loops. So for now, I'm just going to back loop only, single crochet across till I get to that last stitch, and I'll put a standard single crochet under both of those top 2 loops right in that very last one. So I'll see you when we get to the end here of row 2 of our repeat. So now we've worked row 2 of our pattern repeat, and we're ready for row 3. Row 3, we chain 1 again and turn. Now I'm going to put my single crochet in that first stitch. You'll notice along the edges we always have standard single crochets. It just makes it a little more sturdy along the edge. We keep our back loop only stitches sort of inside those bracketed solid stitches there. So for row 3, we single crochet in that first stitch, and now we're going to back loop only single crochet in the next 21 stitches. So we went 24 before, now we're doing 21, so we'll have 3 stitches left unworked there right at the end. So I know we're still in the black portion of the yarn, so it's a little harder to see after we skipped those first 2 rows there, or the second and third rows rather, at the top. But when you start working in it and you get it up close and personal, it's a lot easier to see in between those stitches. So I'm sorry if they're not translating as well on camera, but when you're holding the yarn in your hands, you want to make sure you have a nice bright light, and you'll be able to see and feel to get right under that back loop only. And here we are at the end of row 3. We should have a total of 22 stitches in this row, our first single crochet, and then 21 back loop only single crochets. And now you can see the yarn color is switching on us. We've got 3 stitches left here unworked from the previous row, and we're ready to turn and work row 4. And if you're following along with the written pattern, you'll notice rows 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, the even numbered rows, when we work back towards our straight edge here, are all the same. We chain 1 and turn, and back loop only single crochet until we get to that last stitch, and then just work a standard single crochet in that last stitch. So now that we've changed colors, it's a little easier to see how I go under just that back loop only when I make these back loop only single crochet stitches. So just work those on across till you get to that last one and single crochet in the last stitch, and that will finish up row 4. So here we are finished with row 4 of our repeat. Back loop only single crochet all the way across until we work a standard single crochet in that last one. And we're ready for row 5. So I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to put a single crochet in that first stitch. And now I'm going to back loop only single crochet in the next 18. Again, that will just leave 3 stitches there at the end unworked. So if you're paying attention, you might be picking up on how this pattern works. We stop 3 stitches short every time we're going this direction, Then when we come back, we work all the way to the edge. So I'll see you when we get to the end here of row 5. So here I am at the end of row 5, and you can see there's 3 unworked stitches there, and you can really start to see where that texture is coming in with those back loop only stitches. So of course, row 6 is just like those even rows of our repeat before. We chain 1 and turn, and back loop only single crochet until there's 1 stitch left, and single crochet in that one. Alrighty, so now we're ready for row number 7, where we chain 1, single crochet in the first stitch, and back loop only single crochet in the next 15 stitches. Again, this will leave 3 stitches here at the end of the previous row unworked. And here we are at the end of row 7, and we're ready for row 8. Same thing again, chain 1, back loop only single crochet until you get to the last stitch, and single crochet in that one. We're just continuing to make our little stair steps. And here we are at the ends of rows 9 and 10. In row 9, we single crocheted in that first stitch and then back loop only single crocheted in 12 stitches. Again, 3 stitches left unworked. And of course, row 10, we came back the other direction. And here we are at the end of rows 11 and 12. For row 11, we single crocheted in that first stitch and back loop only single crocheted in the next 9. And then for row 12, we turned and worked back the other direction. And here we are at the end of rows 13 and 14. For row 13, we single crochet in the first stitch, then back loop only single crochet in the next 6. So we have a total of 7 stitches in each of those rows. And finally, here are rows 15 and 16. For row 15, we single crochet in that first stitch and back loop only single crochet in only the next 3 stitches. And then of course, row 16 is that row 2 repeat, working our way back the same way. So now we're ready for row 17, which is the last row of our repeat. So we're going to start here with a chain 1, and we want to turn and work back along our previous rows here. So now we're going to single crochet in that first stitch, just as we've been doing. Then we are going to back loop only single crochet in the next 3 stitches. You can see those right here. 1, 2, 3. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start using those single crochet 2 togethers as we work down along all these little stair steps. So we're at the end of this step here. So we're going to single crochet 2 together in the side of the last row and in the back loop only of this first unworked stitch 2 rows below. So let's do that together. This is the row we're making right here. So I want to come down to the row below. I'm going to insert my hook right along the side of that row. Now, where exactly you put your hook is up to you. I like to try and catch 2 strands of that stitch there along the edge if I can, but if you find you can only get 1 and you like the look, that's fine too. So we put our hook right in the side of that row, yarn over and pull up our loop. Then we move right on down here to those 3 unworked stitches right here. We want to go under the back loop only of just that first one right there. Yarn over and pull up our loop. Then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. That's our single crochet 2 together. Then we just back loop only single crochet in these unworked stitches. So there should be 2 left here. 1 and 2. Straighten out the yarn. And then we do that single crochet 2 together again. Every time we come to the end of our little steps, that's how we work our way down. So this is the previous row. A little easier to see now that it's in a different color. So we want to pick up our loops from the side here on our hook. And see, I just kind of went right through that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then I'm going to come all the way down here, find those next 3 unworked stitches, find that first one, go under that back loop only, yarn over and pull up my stitch. And one tip I like to do when I'm making these short row step downs so that this single crochet 2 together decrease doesn't become sort of leggy and loose is just take a moment when I've got all 3 loops on the hook here, make sure they're nice and close to each other and they're not spread out, especially with different styles of hooks that will allow them to spread out more. Try and get those loops really close together before you yarn over and pull through. And that will really help pull that stitch together and help it stay nice and compact. Then we back loop only single crochet in those next 2 stitches, just like we did before. Which brings us to the end of this step. So you can see how we're going to continue working our way down, but for this one, we're going to work it all the way together. We go under those 2 loops at the side of the previous row, the one below, Yarn over and pull up our loop. Find that next unworked stitch. Find the back loop from that one. Make sure our loops are nice and close together and pull through. Back loop only in those next two. Just working our way right on down. There we are. Go into the side of the row we were just working into. See, this one didn't want to cooperate. Only one loop wanted to get on my hook. So I'm going to take my time. Try and get a second one without splitting it. There we go. Yarn over and pull up that loop. Then jump down here to these three. Find that back loop only. Yarn over. Get my loops nice and close together. Yarn over and pull through. 2 more back loop only stitches here. Brings us to our next step. Find our loops along the side. Yarn over and pull up our loop. Find our next unworked stitch. Yarn over and pull up our loop. Yarn over and pull through all 3. Just a couple more steps here to go. And I imagine experienced crocheters are already thinking about all the different variations you could do with short rows. You could, of course, make it wider, have a lot more stitches. Have more stitches in your steps. Have more steps. There's just so many fun things you can do with this technique. Now I'm at the end of my step, so I'll go ahead and pick up my loop from the side of the row. Jump down here to this stitch. Couple more back loop only single crochets here. You can see we're almost down here. We've got just a couple more decreases to go. We come to the end of this row to pick up our loops. Yarn over and pull up our loop. Go down to that unused stitch. Continue across. And we've got one last step right here. Now remember, we did skip a couple rows down here, so you'll have a little bit more thickness down here to work into. But this row is all the same regardless. So we just get those last 2 loops. There we go. Pull up our loop there. Back loop only again. Now here we are down at our end section. So we're going to back loop only the next 2 stitches, just like we did on our other steps. Oops. Back loop only single crochet, back loop only single crochet. When that very last stitch is right there, we want to go through both of those loops. Remember, we go under both of those loops whenever we're at our end stitches so that those stay nice and solid. And there is what row 17 looks like. It is the row that sorts of pulls that whole repeat all together. And now you can actually go straight back into that repeat again with repeat row 1. Because we have an odd number of rows, the next wedge will actually fill in that section. If we had an even number of rows, they would keep sort of wedging around and creating a circle. But with an odd number of rows, we can make sure that those are going to stack together. So let me pull up our purse here, and you can see our colors are laying out a little differently because I didn't do the 2 extra rows here at the edge. But you can see there is our first wedge right there on our bag. So that next section will fill in that wedge. And then the next section will make another wedge, and the next section will fill in that wedge. It is just so much fun and to see how the colors develop as you keep going. After you've made those 3 more wedges, we've got 1 wedge here. Second wedge will straighten it back out. Third wedge will create another sort of one like this. Fourth wedge will straighten it back out. Then we just do a few more rows of the solid single crochet. You can see those right here to finish it all up. And then what you want to do before you do any more sewing is go ahead and block your rectangle. Like I say, this is going to be one long rectangle, so I do recommend you take some time to block it out. I found using a steamer really helped me get some nice straight edges to my rectangle. This fabric has a lot of movement to it, so blocking it and steaming it will be a big help. You just want to make sure not to over steam it so that you melt the fabric. We want to make sure to keep the stitches intact, so just do a little bit of steam, give it a break, and come back and hit it again. So after you've got your piece blocked out, but before you've sewn the sides together, I recommend you go ahead and put in the zipper. And if you look at the written pattern, I've got some great close-up pictures of how I installed that zipper. But basically, here you can see the yarn zip itself. We can go ahead and open that up. You can see there is a stopper there at the end, so this one won't continue through. And I don't know if you'll be able to see it here on the camera. Let me grab my hook and show a little bit. There is a whole channel there. This hook is a bit too big. You need a smaller hook if you want to use a hook to crochet through it. but with a yarn needle, it is quite a bit easier. It's quite easy if I push through with this. You can see just how easily that went through with a stitch marker. And stitch markers are dull. They're not sharp at all. They're not meant to be sharp. And that just goes right through. It's a really beautiful straight line right there. So what I did was, before I sewed those edges up, and again, there's a picture demonstrating this in the written pattern, I went ahead and lined up my zipper with my fabric on both edges and sewed that in before I then sewed up the sides. So very simply, you can see right there sort of the shininess of the zipper itself. I just lay that right behind my top edge of my bag, line up the stopper with the edge of the bag, maybe in just a little bit. Think about other things you have with the zippers and take a close look at, a zipper in another pouch. If you've got one laying around, that will sort of help you visualize it. Then I can take my stitch markers and just go right through the stitch and right through the zipper. It is so, so easy. I feel like I'm catching the light just right there. Maybe you can see the little change. It is so easy to just push that right through there. And then you can just use your stitch markers to hold it right in place until you come back with your yarn needle and sew it in. So the way I like to do it was to sew one side of the zipper into one side of the pouch. Then I brought up the other side. Of course, make sure you fold it just right. Sew the other side of the zipper in. Of course, it'll be that straight edge. And then I took the whole thing wrong side out and seamed up the edges. So I did leave a couple of ends here unwoven in, but let's go ahead and turn this wrong side out so you can really see it in progress. I even used contrasting yarn, which I do not recommend. When you make yours, I really want to encourage you to go ahead and use some more of the black yarn. You might have to pull some more off your skein, or if you've got a skein of Red Heart Super Saver black laying around, just go ahead and grab some of that because you want to be able to hide those stitches. And I had to work really hard to hide some of these. So I do recommend you use your black to seam it up. But you can see I'm not an amazing seamstress here. I just sewed right along the edges. You can see this is our wrong side outside there with our zipper. This side I sewed in a little more carefully to sew down those tabs of the zipper. Somehow completely missed this end as well when it was time to weave in the ends, but it's good for demonstrating with, right? You can see it's the one continuous piece of fabric there. Just a simple, simple seam. I recommend you weave in your ends. If you want to line it, you absolutely could. That would be very simple to do because it is just a simple rectangle. You could even get a pre-purchased pouch to slip in there if you wanted to and just crochet the outer cover. That would be a fun way to do it too. If you don't feel like sewing anything, you could crochet an outer cover for a pouch you already have and slip it in there and just sew it right to the pouch, whatever you like. But this pattern is just such a fun exploration of short rows and a great way to use, a different way to use, Red Heart all-in-one granny square. And that's how to crochet the Tipsy Granny Zipper Pouch. You'll find this pattern for free on mooglyblog.com, featuring Red Heart all-in-one granny square and the new black yarn zip. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.